How can the most iconic team in Formula One get to your completely broken house? What is happening inside Ferrari, and why is Imola your last chance to redeem in 2025? Ferrari arrives at Emilia Romagna's Grand Prix, dragging the weight of a season start that has turned out to be a real reality bath. Despite having closed 2024 with a solid comeback that allowed him to be second in the Builder Championship, the 2025 start has been chaotic, with multiple symptoms of internal disorder, technical imbalances, and a performance well below what was promised. With only 94 points added after the first races, the team is in a critical position, more than 150 units of a McLaren that has taken control of the championship with authority. This is not the type of difference that can be attributed to bad luck or a couple of isolated errors. It is a deep lag in rhythm, in concept, and, above all, in execution. The situation is aggravated when the huge blow of media effect that represented the signing of Lewis Hamilton is remembered. The arrival of the 7-time world champion not only generated global holders and expectations, but also symbolized a cycle change in Maranello. There was talk of a new leadership, a more aggressive mentality, and a technical plan with clear ambitions of title. However, in practice, the team has not been able to support that narrative. In his debut, Hamilton barely achieved a point in changing conditions, and although he has shown flashes of adaptation and talent, his experience has not been enough to correct the structural problems of SF25. Its adaptation has been slower than expected, and its frustration, although contained, has begun to be noticed in its public statements. Beyond numbers and results, what really worries in Ferrari is lack of clarity. In previous years, the team could excuse themselves in strategic errors or boxing failures. But this season, the problems are deeper. The car does not respond as expected. The operating window is limited, and technical development seems to have touched a ceiling much earlier than expected. Charles Leclerc, who has been carrying the expectations of the fans for years, has also shown signs of impatience. His pilot level remains high, but even he has been the victim of technical decisions that have cost him key positions. And without a clear technical direction that returns confidence, his options to fight for more than middle points vanished. This context makes the arrival in Imola particularly symbolic. The Scuderia not only runs at home, does it on a route that represents its essence, surrounded by tifosi that, beyond the results, demand attitude, delivery, and a clear direction. Imola does not forgive indifference. It is the place where myths are forged or collapsed. If Ferrari fails here again, it will not only be a sports defeat, it will be an emotional fracture with its most faithful support base. And that, for a team that is defined both for its history and its victories, could have consequences that extend far beyond this season. The SF25 was born under an ambitious promise: to become the tool that would finally put Ferrari in a position to fight you against Red Bull and McLaren. Since their presentation, technical decisions were highlighted that implied a break with the previous design. The adoption of the pull rod suspension system on the front axle was one of the clearest signals that Ferrari was willing to risk. This configuration, already used successfully by its direct rivals, was aimed at improving aerodynamic flow in the front of the car, optimizing flat bottom performance and load on the rear axle. In addition, a new internal distribution was incorporated that allowed the team to modify the location of the pontoons and open greater possibilities of aerodynamic evolution throughout the year. Technically, the SF25 was conceived to offer a more versatile platform, capable of adapting to different types of circuits. But all this remained on paper. In reality, the car has proven to be as complex as it is limited. One of the biggest problems Ferrari has faced is the extreme sensitivity of the car to external conditions. Mild changes in temperature, grip level, or even in the direction of the wind end up drastically affecting the behavior of the SF25. This characteristic has made finding a consistent tuning is almost impossible. To this is added a structural subwiring that frequently appears in slow curves, which prevents pilots from attacking with confidence in technical sectors. Even in the medium-speed curves, where the car should take advantage of its longer and more stable platform, the performance has not been competitive in front of its rivals. And when there is no confidence in the front train, the pilot not only wasting time, it also enters a vicious circle of adjustments that never solve the root problem. The most frustrating thing is that both Hamilton and Leclerc have expressed that the potential exists, that there is data in the simulator that show a competitive car. However, on track, that potential cannot be exploited. Hamilton has been particularly clear about it. He has said that he feels that there is something fundamental that does not fit in the relationship between what the car promises and what he really delivers on the race weekends. From the China GP, the car seems to have lost efficacy in key sections, and the provisional solutions have failed to stop that trend. Ferrari has tried to modify the balance with height adjustments, aerodynamic load and motor maps, but nothing has been conclusive. The problem seems to be rooted in the interaction of the chassis with the aerodynamic package, and that is not corrected with patches, requires a redesign or at least a radical reinterpretation of the base concept. This disconnection between theoretical design and practical execution has put the technical team in a very delicate situation. Each race represents a kind of real-time experiment, where engineers work against the time to try to understand a car that does not respond to the logic with which it was created. This has generated internal wear and a progressive loss of trust. Because when not even pilots can anticipate how the car will behave in the next curve, it is a sign that something very deep is wrong. Instead of building an upward performance curve, Ferrari is caught in a test and error cycle that prevents planning in the medium term. The question that many are already asked is whether SF25 is a conceptually erroneous or simply poorly developed car. It is possible that it has virtues that have not yet been activated due to lack of internal understanding, but there is also the risk that the base design is so committed that any improvement is marginal. In both scenarios, the only constant is the urgency. Ferrari cannot continue waiting. He needs to find answers already, and not because the position table requires it, but because time runs against a project that, at least so far, has not fulfilled any of its promises. For weeks, rumors had generated enormous expectation around the update package that Ferrari would lead to Emilia Romagna's Grand Prix. Imola, being the first race at the team, was seen as the perfect opportunity to present a significant improvement that could change the course of the season. There was talk of aerodynamic changes, suspension settings and new key pieces to expand the SF25 operational window. However, when the team director, Fred Vasseur, went out to speak publicly, the illusions deflated. He confirmed that there would be updates, but it made it clear that it would be a modest step, not a technical revolution. What many expected as a turning point seemed rather a simple attempt to gain some stability. This contrast between the expectations of the environment and the reality of the team reveals the internal tension that Ferrari is experiencing. The improvements that will arrive in Imola are not designed to make a leap in absolute performance, but to seek greater consistency. It's about finding a better balance, reducing the oscillations that make the car unpredictable career after career. From within the team, the sensation is that they cannot risk introducing drastic changes that could worsen the problem. Therefore, what we will see in Imola will be more a search for control than a commitment to total performance. And that, although logical from the point of view of engineering, sounds like a missed opportunity at a time when Ferrari needs more than small adjustments. All this occurs in an emotional and symbolic context that makes Imola a career other than any other. Ferrari not only competes at home, competes in front of the tifosi, in front of a hobby that hopes to see more than technical improvements. He wants to see character, aggressiveness and signs that the team still believes in his project. But with a car that has shown more doubts than certainties, and with a conservative development strategy, the margin for a blow of effect is reduced. The pilots know it, the engineers know it, and the whole paddock perceives it. If Ferrari fails to show something different, not only in terms of results, but in attitude, the pressure can end up crushing any attempt to recover. Imola then becomes Ferrari's emotional and technical thermometer. It is not enough to add points or end ahead of a direct rival. This weekend you have to offer answers. You have to show that the team has learned from its mistakes, which has a clear direction, and that the SF25 can at least start behaving like the competitive car that was promised. Because if after this race the sensation is still stagnant, the mood damage could be irreparable. And in a championship as tight as this, losing confidence can be as lethal as wasting time on the track. Emilia Romagna's Grand Prix is not just one more stop on the calendar for Ferrari. It is a scenario that can completely redefine the course of your season. In the midst of an obvious performance crisis and with a hobby that demands answers, the career in Imola represents a clear bifurcation. Either it becomes the starting point of a real recovery, or in the definitive confirmation that Ferrari has failed again in its attempt to return to the elite. The team does not arrive with high confidence or with great technical certainties, but with the urgency of responding. And that can be a powerful motivation or a burden impossible to sustain. Tifosi do not forgive indifference or mediocrity. They are used to suffering but not to resign. If Ferrari shows at least struggle signs, having understood what is wrong and wanting to correct the course, the public's breath can become an additional engine. But if the team repeats errors, if the car still does not respond and the pilots end up resigned to fighting for minor points, then the pressure will be transformed into disappointment, and that disappointment into media noise that will only do the most difficult things. The team cannot afford that emotional collapse in its own temple. What happens in Imola will have a direct impact not only on the standings, but on the mood of the team, in the credibility of its leaders, and in the relationship with their fans. This weekend does not define a championship, but it can define a project. If Ferrari finds a base on which to build from here, the season can still have valuable chapters. But if it comes out of its clearless circuit, it will be difficult to prevent a sense of inevitable failure from being installed.